He thought he was just saving a helpless animal. But this wasn't an accident. Someone wanted this cub gone. And when he pulled it from the dirt, he uncovered a secret darker than anything he could have imagined. Because this cub isn't just rare, it's priceless. And the people who want it back will stop at nothing. From intimidation and fire, to threats against his own family, every step he takes pulls him deeper into a world built on greed and cruelty. But hidden inside this ordinary man are skills and strength no one ever believed he had. As danger closes in, one question burns: can he protect the life he saved, or will the powerful forces hunting him destroy everything he loves? Before we begin, tell me your city or country in the comments. It turns this space from a screen into a circle of real hearts. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the Oklahoma countryside as Caleb Darnell worked methodically along the fence line. His weathered hands moved with practiced efficiency, replacing rotted posts and mending broken wire. Most folks around these parts barely noticed him, just another ranch hand doing his job. That suited Caleb just fine. He wiped the sweat from his brow, his dark hair damp at the edges where his hat had sat. The spring air was getting cooler as evening approached, but the work had kept him plenty warm. As he drove another staple into a post, securing the wire, an unusual sound caught his attention. At first, it was so faint he thought he might have imagined it. Caleb stood perfectly still, listening. There it was again, a weak cry, muffled and desperate, coming from somewhere near the edge of the woods. He set down his tools and walked toward the sound, his boots crunching on dead leaves. The ground near a large oak tree looked recently disturbed. Fresh dirt had been roughly scattered over what appeared to be a shallow hole. Caleb's heart began to pound as another weak cry emerged from beneath the soil. Without hesitation, he dropped to his knees and began digging with his bare hands. "Hold on," he whispered, though he didn't know what he was about to uncover. "I'm coming." The dirt was loose and fresh, making it easy to move. His fingers worked frantically, scooping away handful after handful. The cries grew slightly louder, spurring him to dig faster. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably only minutes, his hand struck something soft. Carefully, he brushed away more soil, revealing spotted fur. Caleb's breath caught in his throat as he realized what he was looking at. A leopard cub, no bigger than a house cat, had been buried alive in this makeshift grave. "Dear God," he breathed, gently lifting the tiny creature from its earthen prison. The cub was barely breathing, its eyes crusted shut with dirt, its beautiful spotted coat matted and filthy. It made a weak sound that broke Caleb's heart. Using his bandana, he carefully wiped the dirt from the cub's face, checking its nose and mouth to make sure it could breathe properly. The little creature was cold, too cold. Caleb quickly unbuttoned his work shirt and held the cub against his undershirt, trying to share his body heat. Who would do something like this? He wondered aloud, anger rising in his chest. This wasn't some random occurrence. Leopards weren't native to Oklahoma. Someone had deliberately tried to kill this exotic animal by burying it alive. The cub stirred slightly, pressing closer to Caleb's warmth. Its breathing seemed to be getting stronger, though it was still worryingly weak. As Caleb cradled it, questions raced through his mind. Where had it come from? Who would be so cruel? And what was he supposed to do now? He knew he couldn't just leave it here or turn it over to animal control without investigating further. Something very wrong was happening, and this innocent creature had nearly paid for it with its life. The cub let out a small sneeze, and Caleb felt it tremble against his chest. "It's okay, little one," he murmured, surprising himself with the fierce protectiveness he felt. "You're safe now. I've got you." Looking around the disturbed area, Caleb noticed boot prints in the soft earth, large ones made by someone in a hurry. They led off toward the north, but were soon lost in the thicker grass. He committed the direction to memory, knowing it might be important later. The sun was getting lower, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Caleb gathered his tools with one hand, keeping the cub secure against his chest with the other. The little creature had stopped shaking and seemed to be breathing more steadily now, though it was still alarmingly weak. As he walked back toward his truck, Caleb felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He wasn't anyone special, just a quiet man who did his work and kept to himself. But now he had stumbled onto something dark and cruel, and he couldn't walk away from it. The cub shifted slightly in his arms, letting out a tiny sound that might have been a purr. Caleb looked down at its dirty, spotted fur and innocent face, and knew with absolute certainty that he would do whatever it took to protect this little life and uncover the truth behind its attempted murder. With the rescued cub wrapped carefully in his jacket, Caleb drove toward the sheriff's office in town. His old pickup truck rattled along the dirt road as he rehearsed how he'd explain the situation. The cub had fallen asleep, its tiny body finally warming up, before he could reach the main road. A black SUV roared up behind him, headlights flashing. Two more vehicles appeared, boxing him in and forcing him to stop. Caleb's heart raced as he watched three men emerge from the vehicles. He recognized the tall figure in the center immediately, Rainer Keats, owner of the largest ranch in the county. Keats approached Caleb's window, his expensive boots kicking up dust. The two men flanking him carried rifles, their faces hard and expressionless. Caleb rolled down his window, instinctively pulling the jacket-wrapped cub closer to his chest. "Evening, Mr. Darnell," Keats said smoothly, though his eyes were cold. "I believe you have something that belongs to me." Caleb felt the cub stir against him. "This cub? The one I found buried alive?" "There's been a misunderstanding," Keats replied, his smile not reaching his eyes. "That animal is part of a licensed exotic breeding program. It became ill, and we were handling the situation appropriately. By burying it alive?" Caleb's voice shook with anger. Keats's smile disappeared. "Son, you're stepping into something that doesn't concern you. Hand over the cat, and we can all go about our business." "No, sir," Caleb said quietly but firmly. "I can't do that." The two armed men shifted their positions, making sure Caleb could see their weapons. Keats leaned closer to the window. "Listen carefully, boy. You're nobody. Just a ranch hand barely scraping by. I own half this county and employ most of the other half. Do you really want to make an enemy of me?" "I just want to do what's right," Caleb replied, his mouth dry but his resolve firm. "Right?" Keats laughed harshly. "Right is whatever I say it is around here. This is your last chance. Give me that cat, or you'll regret it." Caleb met Keats's gaze. "No." Keats straightened up, his face darkening. "You've made a serious mistake. Darnell, remember, I warned you." He nodded to his men, and they returned to their vehicles. As quickly as they had appeared, the three vehicles vanished into the gathering dusk, leaving Caleb alone with his heart pounding. The cub stirred and let out a small mew, as if sensing his distress. Instead of continuing to the sheriff's office, Caleb turned around. After that encounter, he wasn't sure who he could trust. He drove home to his small trailer on the edge of his sister Marissa's property, checking his rearview mirror the whole way. That night, Caleb made the cub comfortable in a box lined with old towels and gave it some water and small bits of meat. He was researching leopard cubs on his phone when he heard tires on gravel outside. Looking out his window, he saw headlights sweep across his yard, then darkness. The sound of breaking glass made him jump. He grabbed his flashlight and rushed. Outside, his truck's windows had been smashed, and spray painted across the side were the words, "Last warning." The taillights were shattered and all four tires had been slashed. On his trailer's door, someone had nailed a dead rattlesnake. "Caleb?" his sister Marissa's voice called out. She hurried across from her house, wrapping her robe tightly around herself. "I heard noise. Oh my God." She stared at the vandalism, her face pale in the flashlight beam. This is because of that animal you found, isn't it? You have to give it back to them." "I can't, Marissa," Caleb said, carefully removing the snake from his door. "They tried to bury it alive. They'll kill it. And they might kill you." Marissa grabbed his arm. "Please, Caleb, you're all I have left. We can't fight people like Keats. They'll destroy us." Caleb looked at his sister's frightened face, then through his window at the sleeping cub. The conflict tore at him, his sister's safety versus an innocent creature's life. But the memory of digging that helpless animal out of its grave steeled his resolve. "I have to try," he said softly. "If we let people like Keats do whatever they want just because they're powerful, nothing will ever change." "You're not some hero, Caleb," Marissa pleaded. "You're my brother, and I'm scared for you." Inside, the cub let out a small cry, and Caleb felt his determination strengthen. "I'm scared too," he admitted. "But I can't walk away from this. I won't." Marissa hugged him tightly, tears in her eyes. "Then please be careful. Promise." "Me? I promise," he whispered, holding his sister while looking at the warnings Keats's men had left. He knew this was just the beginning, but there was no turning back now. The next morning, Caleb drove his sister's pickup truck to the sheriff's office, his jaw still tight from a sleepless night. The bell above the door chimed as he entered, and Sheriff Mills looked up from his desk, coffee cup paused halfway to his mouth. "Caleb Darnell? What brings you in so early?" Caleb placed his phone on the sheriff's desk, showing pictures of his vandalized truck and trailer. "Someone destroyed my property last night, and I know who's behind it." Sheriff Mills scrolled through the photos with disinterest. His weathered face remained impassive, though his eyes flickered with something that might have been concern or warning. "That's some nasty business. Any witnesses?" "No, but Rainer Keats threatened me yesterday." "His men were armed." The sheriff held up his hand. "Now hold on there. That's a serious accusation against a respected member of this community." "Respected?" Caleb's voice rose. "He tried to intimidate me because I found." He caught himself, remembering how many people in town owed their livelihoods to Keats. "Found what?" Sheriff Mills leaned back in his chair, which creaked under his weight. "Evidence of illegal activity on his land." The sheriff sighed heavily. "Listen, son. Mr. Keats runs multiple legitimate businesses that employ half this county. Whatever misunderstanding you think occurred." "Misunderstanding?" Caleb's hands clenched into fists. "My truck is destroyed. There was a dead rattlesnake nailed to my door. Could have been local kids causing trouble, or maybe someone with a personal grudge." Sheriff Mills stood up, indicating the conversation was over. "File an insurance claim. That's my advice." Caleb stared at him in disbelief. "You're not even going to investigate?" "Without evidence linking this directly to anyone in particular, there's not much I can do." The sheriff's tone hardened. "And I'd be careful about throwing around accusations against prominent citizens. That kind of talk can make life difficult around here." Caleb left the sheriff's office with his heart pounding in his ears. The morning sun felt too bright, almost mocking. He drove to the Double R Ranch where he worked, his mind racing with the sheriff's thinly veiled warning dot in the equipment barn. He found Derek Fallon working on a tractor engine. Derek looked up as Caleb approached, immediately noting his friend's troubled expression. "You look like you've been chewing on barbed wire," Derek said, wiping his hands on a rag. "What's eating you?" Caleb glanced around to ensure they were alone, then told Derek everything, finding the leopard cub, the confrontation with Keats, the vandalism, and the sheriff's dismissal. Derek listened intently, his normally cheerful face growing serious. "I've heard things about Keats' operation up at the North Range," he said quietly. "Things that don't add up." "What do you mean? Those new buildings he put up last year?" "Supposed to be for storing equipment, but I've seen trucks coming and going at odd hours. Fancy vehicles too, not local." Derek lowered his voice further. "My cousin works security at the regional airport. Says Keats has private planes landing in the middle of the night. No flight plans filed. Caleb felt his stomach tighten. You think he's smuggling exotic animals? Makes sense, doesn't it? Rich. Folks will pay a fortune for illegal pets. And I've heard stories about hunting parties up there. The kind where people with too much money pay to shoot animals they're not supposed to have in the first place. That's why they tried to bury the cub, Caleb said, the realization hitting him hard. If anyone found it, it would expose their whole operation. Derek nodded grimly. Keats has got half the county in his pocket, and the other half too scared to speak up. But you've always been different, Caleb. Even back in school, you stood up for what was right, even when nobody else would. Fat lot of good it did me, Caleb said bitterly. I'm still just the nobody ranch hand everyone overlooks. Maybe that's your advantage, Derek suggested. Nobody expects you to be a threat. Look, I know some people who might be interested in what's really going on at Keats' place. People who don't care how rich or powerful he is. Who? Let me make some calls, but Caleb, Derek gripped his friend's shoulder. Be careful. If we're right about what Keats is doing, he's got a lot more to protect than just his reputation. Caleb nodded, feeling the weight of what they were uncovering settle over him. The cub he'd rescued wasn't just an isolated incident of cruelty. It was evidence of something much darker. A system of exploitation and corruption that ran deep through their community. Looking at Derek's concerned face, Caleb realized he wasn't alone anymore. For the first time since finding the cub, he felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't just about saving one animal now. It was about exposing the truth, no matter the cost. The storm shelter's rusty hinges groaned as Caleb pulled open the heavy metal doors. Cool, musty air wafted up from the underground space. Derek held a flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness to reveal concrete walls and metal shelving stocked with ancient canned goods. It's not exactly cozy, Marissa said, wrapping her arms around herself. But no one's used this shelter since the Jenkins family moved away 5 years ago. Caleb descended the steep steps carefully, carrying the leopard cub wrapped in an old blanket. The tiny creature had grown stronger in the days since he'd rescued it, but still needed constant care and attention. The temperature's actually perfect. Down here, he said, setting the cub down on a clean patch of floor, and there's enough space for a makeshift pen. Derek brought down supplies they'd gathered, water bowls, pet food, a small space heater, and some old towels for bedding. We can take shifts checking on it, make sure it's got everything it needs. Marissa stood at the top of the stairs, keeping watch. What happens when it gets bigger? We can't keep it here forever. That's why I reached out to Dr. Whitford, Caleb sighed, arranging the supplies. She's arriving this afternoon. If anyone can help us figure out what to do next, it's her. The cub explored its new surroundings, sniffing cautiously at the corners of the shelter. Despite its ordeal, it showed remarkable resilience, its spotted coat gleaming in the flashlight beam. Hours later, they met Dr. Lena Whitford at a quiet diner on the outskirts of town. She wasn't what Caleb had expected. Instead of the stuffy academic he'd imagined, she was a practical-looking woman in hiking boots and cargo pants, with intelligent eyes that missed nothing. "Show me," she said simply. After they'd made their introductions, they drove separately to the storm shelter, taking back roads to avoid attention. Dr. Whitford's sharp intake of breath when she saw the cub told them everything. "This isn't just any leopard," she said, kneeling to examine the creature. "This is an Amur leopard cub, one of the rarest big cats in the world. There are fewer than 100 left in the wild." She looked up at them, her expression grave. "This animal is worth a fortune on the black market." The cub had taken to her immediately, rubbing against her hands as she checked its condition. "Female, probably about 8 weeks old. She's healthy, despite what she's been through." Dr. Whitford's voice hardened. "You said you found her buried." "Alive?" Caleb nodded, recounting that evening. As he spoke, he watched Dr. Whitford's face darken with anger. "Classic tactics," she said. "When a smuggling operation goes wrong, they dispose of the evidence. They probably lost the mother during transport, couldn't sell just the cub, so they tried to eliminate the problem." She stroked the cub's head gently. "You saved her life. What can we do?" Derek asked. "The sheriff won't help. He's in Keats' pocket. I've dealt with operations like this before," Dr. Whitford said. "They're usually connected to larger trafficking networks. The good news is I have contacts in federal law enforcement. The bad news is building a case takes time. We may not have." Marissa, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "What do you mean? Keats knows you have the cub," Dr. Whitford explained. "Men like him don't let go easily. They can't afford to. One exposed operation can bring down an entire network." She looked at each of them in turn. "Are you sure you want to be involved in this? It's going to get dangerous." Caleb met her gaze steadily. "We're already involved. I'm not walking away." "Me neither," Derek said firmly. Marissa hesitated, then squared her shoulders. "Someone has to stand up to them." Dr. Whitford nodded, a hint of approval in her expression. "Then we do this smart. I'll need to document everything: the cub's condition, where you found her, any evidence of the larger operation. We'll need photographs, measurements, DNA samples." She reached into her pack and pulled out some equipment. "First things first, let's get this little one properly documented. Every detail matters if we're going to build a case that sticks." They spent the next hour helping Dr. Whitford examine and photograph the cub. She showed them how to proper care for it, explaining its dietary needs and behavioral patterns. Throughout it all, the cub remained surprisingly calm, as if sensing they were trying to help. "She needs a name," Marissa said suddenly. "We can't just keep calling her the cub," Dr. Whitford smiled. "Names are powerful things. They make our commitments real." "Hope," Caleb said quietly. Everyone looked at him, because that's what she is. "Hope that we can make things right." The cub, Hope, chose that moment to pad over to Caleb, leaning against his leg with a soft rumble. "Hope it is," Dr. Whitford agreed. She packed up her equipment, her expression turning serious again. "I'll make some calls tonight, start setting things in motion. But remember, Keats will be watching. Be careful. Vary your routines. Don't come here at the same time every day. And if anything feels wrong, trust your instincts." They nodded, the reality of their situation settling over them like a heavy blanket. As they secured the storm shelter and prepared to leave, Caleb looked back at Hope, now curled up in her makeshift bed. She represented something bigger than just one animal's life now. She was proof of corruption that needed to be exposed, of wrongs that needed to be made right. The small group walked back to their vehicles under the fading afternoon light, each lost in their own thoughts, but united in their resolve. They had chosen their path, knowing the risks but unwilling to turn back. The night air carried an unusual stillness. Caleb sat in his truck near the abandoned storm shelter, finishing the last bite of his sandwich dinner. He'd been taking turns with Derek and Marissa to watch over Hope, making sure she was fed and safe. Dr. Whitford's warnings about Keats still echoed in his mind. Flicker of orange light caught his attention. At first, he thought it might be the setting sun reflecting off something, but the glow was too intense, too alive. His heart stopped when he realized what it was. Flames, leaping from the old Henderson barn less than 100 yards from the storm shelter. "No," he whispered, already throwing his truck door open. The fire was spreading with terrifying speed, eating up the dry wood of the ancient structure. Black smoke billowed into the darkening sky. Through the crackling roar, he heard engines, multiple vehicles racing away from the scene. This was no accident. Keats' men had found them. Caleb ran toward the storm shelter, his lungs already burning from the thick smoke. The heat was intense, even from this distance. The barn's collapse would shower burning debris right over there. Hiding spot. He had to get Hope out. His hands shook as he worked the heavy lock, cursing each second it took. When the door finally swung open, Hope's frightened eyes reflected the orange glow of the inferno. She cowered in the corner, her small body trembling. "Come on, girl," he called softly, reaching for her. A thunderous crack split the air as one of the barn's main beams gave way. Hope bolted past him, but not toward safety, straight toward the burning barn. "Hope!" Caleb shouted. The leopard cub, panicked by the noise and chaos, had run directly into the danger. Without hesitation, Caleb sprinted after her. The heat hit him like a wall as he approached the barn. Through the flames, he caught glimpses of Hope's spotted coat as she darted between burning bales of hay. The smoke was so thick he could barely see, barely breathe. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back. "Hope!" He called again, pulling his shirt up over his nose. The flames were everywhere now, dancing along the walls, reaching with hungry fingers toward the roof. Another beam groaned ominously overhead. Found Hope cornered behind some old farm equipment, too terrified to move. The metal was hot enough to burn, but Caleb reached through anyway, ignoring the searing pain as he grabbed the cub. She struggled at first, then went still in his arms, trembling. Getting out proved harder than getting in. The main entrance was now completely engulfed. Caleb turned in a circle, squinting through the smoke, looking for another way out. There, a gap in the wall where the boards had rotted away. It would be a tight squeeze, but it was their only chance. He tucked Hope tighter against his chest and ran. The heat was unbearable now, the smoke so thick he couldn't tell if his eyes were open or closed. His lungs screamed for clean air. Behind him, he heard the distinctive sound of support beams starting to fail. Caleb dove through the gap just as the roof began to cave in. He hit the ground hard, rolling to protect Hope. The barn collapsed with a deafening roar, sending a shower of burning debris into the night sky. For several long moments, Caleb lay there in the grass, coughing violently, still clutching Hope. To his chest, the cub was shaking but unharmed. His hands were blistered, his clothes singed, but they were a live dot as his breathing steadied. Rage replaced fear. Keats had crossed a line. He hadn't just threatened them, he'd tried to destroy everything, willing to burn it all down just to get what he wanted. The barn could have easily spread to nearby homes if the wind had been stronger. People could have died. Hope made a small sound and pressed closer to him, her heart racing against his. Caleb stroked her fur, feeling the tremors slowly subsiding. "It's okay," he whispered hoarsely. "I've got you." The sound of approaching vehicles made him tense, but these engines were familiar. Derek's old pickup and Marissa's car. They must have seen the smoke from the road. Both vehicles skidded to a stop, and his friends came running. "Caleb." Marissa's voice was thick with fear. "Oh my God, are you okay?" "We're fine," he managed, still coughing. "Both of us." Derek helped him to his feet, staring at the burning wreckage of the barn. "This was Keats." "Yeah." Caleb's voice was hard. "He's sending a message, showing us what he's willing to do." "We need to call Dr. Whitford," Marissa said, already pulling out her phone. "This changes things. He's escalating." Caleb looked down at Hope, still tucked safely in his arms despite everything. The sight of her strengthened his resolve. This wasn't just about saving one leopard cub anymore. It was about standing up to the kind of men who thought they could rule through fear and violence. Men who believed their money and power put them above the law. "We need to move Hope somewhere safer," he said. "And then we need to stop Keats, for good." The barn continued to burn behind them, its flames reaching toward the stars, as if trying to signal to the world that something had changed here tonight. In its light, 3 friends and 1 small leopard cub stood together, knowing that while they had survived this attack, It was only the beginning. Dr. Lena Whitford's hands trembled slightly as she spread the documents across the kitchen table. Caleb, Derek, and Marissa leaned in, studying the paperwork she had managed to obtain through her wildlife conservation contacts. "Look at these breeding records," Lena said, pointing to a series of dates and codes. "They're disguised as standard veterinary files, but the pattern is clear. Keats hasn't been importing these animals. He's breeding them in controlled conditions." Caleb frowned, scanning the documents. The technical language was complex, but the implications were becoming clear. "You mean Hope wasn't smuggled in?" "No." Lena's voice was tight with anger. "She was born right here, in Keats' private facility. And she's not the only one." She pulled out another sheet filled with detailed genetic markers. "These are DNA sequences from multiple generations of rare leopards, each one carefully bred to maintain the purest bloodline possible." "But why?" Marissa asked, her face pale. "Why go to all this trouble to breed them here instead of just importing them?" Lena's expression darkened. "Because he's not just trading in exotic animals. He's creating what he calls extinction experiences." She spat the words out like they tasted bitter. "Keats breeds these animals specifically so his wealthy clients can hunt what might be the last of their kind." The silence that followed was deafening. Hope, curled up in her makeshift bed in the corner, watched them with luminous eyes. "That's sick," Derek finally said, his voice rough with disgust. "He's deliberately pushing species toward extinction, just so rich people can brag about killing the last ones." "Exactly." Lena pulled out more papers. "These are financial records. His clients pay millions for the privilege of hunting an animal they believe might be the last of its species. The rarer the animal, the higher the price." Caleb felt something shift inside him as he studied the documents. All his life, people had underestimated him, dismissed him as just another quiet ranch hand. But he'd always noticed things others missed, always understood more than people gave him credit for. Now looking at the complex web of Keats' operation, patterns began emerging. "These dates," he said, pointing to a series of numbers. "They line up with those strange shipments that come through the back roads every month. The ones nobody's supposed to talk about." Lena nodded encouragingly. "Good. Catch. Keats has built an entire underground network. The breeding facility, the hunting grounds, the disposal sites, it's all carefully coordinated." "And Hope?" Marissa asked softly, glancing at the cub. "She was meant to be one of the last," Lena explained. "Her genetic markers show she's part of a carefully cultivated bloodline. When she's grown, she would have been presented as one of the last remaining specimens of her kind." She paused, her voice breaking slightly. "They buried her alive because she was the runt. Not perfect enough for their purposes." Caleb felt rage building in his chest. He'd known Keats was cruel, but this was beyond anything he'd imagined. This wasn't just about money or power anymore. It was about systematically destroying entire species for profit and twisted pleasure. "The cub is evidence," he said slowly, his mind working through the implications. "That's why Keats is so desperate to get her back. She's proof of what he's doing." "Yes, but she's not enough on her own," Lena replied. "We need more. These documents are a start, but they're mostly copies and partial records. We need concrete evidence from inside the facility itself." Derek leaned back in his chair, shaking his head. "That place is like a fortress. Armed guards, security systems, the works." But Caleb was already thinking, drawing on years of quiet observation and understanding of the land. "Maybe not as secure as they think. I've worked every inch of this territory. There are old mining tunnels that run under part of Keats' property. Some of them might lead close to the facility." The others looked at him with newfound respect. This was the Caleb they rarely saw, the one who noticed everything, who understood the land like it was part of him. "It's not enough just to save Hope anymore," Lena said firmly. We have to stop this. All of it. Caleb looked at the sleeping cub, then back at the documents detailing Keats' cruel enterprise. His whole life, he'd stayed in the background, done his job without making waves. But sometimes he realized staying quiet meant being complicit. "We'll need a plan," he said. "A way to gather evidence without getting caught. And we'll need to be careful. Keats has already shown what he's willing to do to protect his secret." The group bent over the table, starting to formulate a strategy. As they worked, Caleb felt something solidifying within him, a sense of purpose, of rightness. He might not be the obvious choice for a hero, but sometimes the quiet ones saw what others missed. Sometimes they were the ones who could make the biggest difference. The full moon cast long shadows across Keats' estate as Caleb led the group through the dense undergrowth. His boots made no sound on the forest floor, a skill learned from years of tracking injured cattle through these same woods. Behind him, Lena, Derek, and Marissa followed carefully in his footsteps. "The tunnel entrance should be just ahead," Caleb whispered, pointing to an outcropping of rocks. "It hasn't been used since the mining days, but it'll get us close to the breeding compound." Derek adjusted the backpack containing their cameras and equipment. "You sure about this, buddy?" Caleb nodded, his expression resolute. "I've been mapping these trails my whole life. Trust me." The entrance was exactly where Caleb remembered, a narrow opening partially hidden by thick vegetation. He'd discovered it years ago while tracking a lost calf, though he'd never imagined he'd be using it for something like this. "Watch your step," he warned, clicking on his flashlight. "And keep your voices down. Sound carries in these tunnels." The passage was tight but navigable. Caleb led them through the darkness, recognizing markers he'd mentally noted on his previous explorations. Left at the fork with the rusty cart tracks, right where the ceiling dipped low. Always heading northeast, toward where they knew Keats' private compound lay. After 20 minutes of careful progress, Caleb held up his hand, stopping the group. "Listen." Above them, they could hear the faint hum of generators. Caleb switched off his light and pressed his ear to the tunnel ceiling. "We're under the compound now. There should be a maintenance shaft coming up soon." They found the shaft, a narrow vertical passage with old metal rungs set into the wall. Caleb tested each rung carefully before allowing anyone to climb. When they reached the top, they emerged into a utility room filled with humming equipment. "Okay," Lena whispered, pulling out a small tablet. "According to the building plans, the breeding pen should be in the east wing. We need clear footage of the animals and any documentation we can find about the breeding program." Caleb took point again, using skills honed by years of moving quietly through the ranch at night to check on nervous animals. He led them through dark corridors, freezing at every sound. His heightened awareness, usually used to spot injured animals or brewing storms, now served to keep them safe from guards. They reached the first set of pens, and Lena had to stifle a gasp. Dozens of cages lined the walls, each containing rare creatures being bred for extinction. Derek started filming while Marissa documented cage numbers and dates from nearby logs. "Look at this," Lena whispered, examining a computer terminal. "They're tracking genetic lines, deliberately breeding for specific traits that their clients want. It's all here: scheduled hunts, client preferences, price lists." Caleb stood guard at the door, every sense alert. He'd spent years being dismissed as just another ranch hand, but those years had taught him to read the smallest signs of danger. A change in the air, a distant footstep, the slight creak of a door. "Someone's coming," he warned, just seconds before a beam of light swept the corridor outside. He quickly guided everyone behind a stack of supply crates, his heart pounding but his movement steady. 2 guards walked past, their conversation drifting through the door. Double quotes, comma, shipping out the new batch next week. "Boss says we got some real high rollers coming in." Once the guards passed, Caleb led the group to another section of the facility. Here, they found what looked like a medical lab. Lena quickly began photographing documents while Derek filmed the equipment. "This is it," Lena said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "Proof they're deliberately engineering these animals for extinction. Dates, client names, genetic profiles, everything we need." They worked quickly but thoroughly, gathering irrefutable evidence of Keith's operation. Through it all, Caleb remained their guide and guardian, his quiet competence keeping them safe as they documented the horrors around them. "We've got enough," he finally said, checking his watch. "We need to move before the next guard rotation." They retraced their steps carefully, Caleb leading them back through the darkness to the tunnel entrance. Each step was measured, each movement precise. The skills he'd developed over years of ranch work, reading the land, moving silently, staying calm under pressure, had prepared him for this moment, though he'd never known it as they emerged. From the tunnel into the cool night air, Lena clutched the backpack containing their evidence. "We did it," she breathed. "With this, we can shut him down. We can save these animals." Caleb nodded, already scanning their surroundings for signs of pursuit. The quiet ranch hand had become something more tonight, a leader, a protector, someone who stood up against cruelty when others looked away. But there would be time to reflect on that later. Right now, they needed to get safely away with their evidence. They moved swiftly through the darkness, following Caleb's lead back toward safety. The weight of what they'd discovered and what they'd done hung heavy in the air around them. But with each step, they carried with them the hope of justice, for hope, for all the animals in those cages, and for the truth itself. The crunch of gravel under their feet shattered the night's silence. Caleb froze, grabbing Lena's arm to stop her. In the distance, bright headlights suddenly blazed to life, sweeping across the landscape. The rumble of truck engines filled the air. "They know," Caleb said, his voice tight. "Run!" they scattered into the forest just as the first shots rang out, bullets splintering tree bark around them. The backpack with their evidence bounced against Lena's back as she ran. Derek veered left, drawing some of the hunters away. Caleb grabbed Marissa's hand, pulling her through a dense patch of undergrowth he knew well from his years working the land. "This way," he shouted to Lena, guiding them toward a steep ravine. The sounds of pursuit grew closer. Boots crashing through brush, engines roaring, dogs barking. Keats had brought his whole operation down on them. Caleb's mind raced as he led them through the darkness. He knew every dip and ridge of this land, every hidden path and treacherous slope. The moon cast just enough light to navigate by, but the same light made them visible to their pursuers. "There's a creek bed ahead," he whispered as they paused behind a fallen oak. "The rocks will hide our tracks. We can." A spotlight cut through the trees, forcing them to move. They splashed across the shallow creek, the cold water soaking their boots. Behind them, voices shouted coordinates into radios. The hunters were organizing, trying to circle around them. Caleb made a split-second decision. "Lena, take the evidence. Head north toward the highway. There's an old culvert 2 miles up. You can hide there." He pulled Marissa closer. "We'll go east, draw them away from you." "Caleb, no," Marissa started to protest. "We don't have time to argue, go." He pushed Lena toward the northern path, then tugged Marissa in the opposite direction. They ran through the forest, Caleb choosing the most difficult terrain, thick brush, steep slopes, anything to slow their pursuers. He could hear the hunters struggling behind them, cursing as thorns caught their clothes and loose rocks turned under their feet. But then Marissa's hand was torn from his grip. She screamed. Caleb spun around to see her sprawled on the ground, foot caught in a root. Before he could reach her, lights blazed around them. Dark figures emerged from the trees, rifles raised. Rainer Keats stepped forward, his silver hair gleaming in the artificial light. I must admit, Caleb, you've surprised me. Who knew the quiet ranch hand had such fight in him? His smile was cold as ice. But this little game ends now. Two men grabbed Marissa, roughly pulling her to her feet. She struggled against their grip, but they were too strong. Let her go, Caleb growled. Taking a step forward, multiple rifles swung toward him. I don't think so. Keats walked closer, his boots crunching on dead leaves. You've become quite a thorn in my side, Caleb. Breaking into my property, stealing my property. Those animals aren't property, Caleb spat. And that cub you buried alive? Was that your property too? Hope was a disappointment. Wrong coloring. Wrong temperament. Bad breeding should be culled. Keats shrugged as if discussing defective machinery rather than a living creature. But now you've forced my hand. He turned to Marissa, studying her like a specimen. Your sister, isn't she? Such a shame to involve family in business matters. Caleb's heart pounded against his ribs. He knew what was coming before Keats said it. Here's how this works, Keats continued. Bring me the cub and whatever evidence you think you've gathered. You have until sunrise. If you don't, he ran a finger across Marissa's cheek, making her flinch. Well, I'm sure you can imagine. Caleb, don't. Marissa shouted. Don't give him. One of the men clamped a hand over her mouth. Sunrise, Keats repeated. Don't disappoint me again. They dragged Marissa away, her muffled protests fading into the darkness. Caleb stood rooted to the spot, his hands clenched into useless fists at his sides. The forest seemed to close in around him, every shadow a reminder of his failure to protect his sister. He had always been the quiet one, the reliable one, the one who never made waves. Now his attempt to finally stand up for something had put Marissa in danger. The weight of the choice ahead pressed down on him like a physical thing. His sister's life against the evidence that could stop Keats' operation, against Hope's future and the lives of countless other animals. The sound of the hunters faded as they withdrew, taking Marissa with them. Caleb sank to his knees in the dirt, overwhelmed by the magnitude of his failure. The moon cast long shadows through the trees, marking the steady march toward sunrise and the impossible decision he would have to make. For the first time since finding Hope buried in the earth, Caleb felt truly buried himself, trapped between loyalty to family and the principles he'd finally found the courage to defend. The night pressed in around him, offering no answers, only the ticking clock toward dawn and the echo of Marissa's silenced protests. Caleb moved through the darkness with purpose, his mind racing but focused. The abandoned quarry rose before him like a ghostly amphitheater, its steep walls creating a natural arena. He knew every inch of this place from his teenage years, the unstable ledges, the hidden paths, the spots where loose rock could trigger small avalanches. He worked methodically, setting up his defenses. Old chains from the quarry equipment became trip lines, carefully concealed in the shadows. He positioned empty oil drums at strategic points, some filled with water, others empty, but useful for cover. His grandfather had taught him that preparation could make up for being outgunned and outnumbered. The eastern sky was beginning to lighten as Caleb tested a rope bridge he'd rigged between two outcroppings. It looked precarious, exactly as he intended. Below, the quarry floor dropped 30 feet to a pool of rainwater. He'd spent hours diverting the nearby stream to raise the water level, making the bottom of the quarry treacherous. His hands moved automatically, checking his makeshift weapons. A sledgehammer from the old equipment shed. A length of steel cable that could serve as both zipline and garrote. Boxes of emergency flares he'd collected from ranch vehicles. None of it matched Keats' firearms, but Caleb was counting on surprise and ingenuity rather than firepower. He positioned spotlights salvaged from the quarry office, angling them to create blind spots and shadows where none should be. Everything had to work together, the terrain, the traps, the timing. His years of fixing fences and machinery had taught him how to make things work with whatever was at hand. Derek arrived as planned, parking his truck behind the old office building. "The Cub's safe," he reported. "Lena's got her hidden where Keats will never find her." He handed Caleb a two-way radio. "You sure about this?" Caleb checked the radio's battery. "No choice. Keats won't expect me to choose this place. He thinks I'm desperate, that I'll try to bargain. He looked around at his preparations, but I'm done playing by his rules." They worked together to finish the setup, testing communication channels and reviewing signals. Every detail mattered. Caleb's quiet attention to routine maintenance over the years had given him an instinct for weak points and pressure spots. Now he would use that knowledge not to fix things, but to make them fail at exactly the right moment. The quarry was becoming his weapon, a trap for those who thought power came only from money and guns. As the sky continued to brighten, Caleb took his position, ready to match Keats' cruelty with something the man would never expect: the careful planning of someone. He'd always underestimated that. As dawn broke over the quarry, Caleb heard the rumble of approaching vehicles. His heart pounded, but his hands remained steady. 3 black SUVs appeared at the quarry's entrance, their headlights cutting through the remaining darkness. Keats emerged from the middle vehicle, dragging Marissa with him. "I'm here, Caleb," Keats shouted, his voice echoing off the rock walls. "Bring the Cub, or your sister pays the price." Caleb activated his radio. "Now," he whispered to Derek, who triggered the first set of spotlights. The sudden glare blinded Keats and his men, giving Marissa the chance to break free. She ran toward the pre-arranged safe zone behind the equipment shed, where Derek waited to protect her. Keats recovered quickly, drawing his weapon. "You're dead." "Darnell," he snarled, advancing into the quarry. His men spread out, but Caleb had anticipated their formation. One stumbled over a hidden chain, sending him sprawling. Another triggered a cascade of loose rock that forced him to retreat. Caleb moved silently along his planned route, using the shadows created by his lighting setup. He knocked over the strategically placed oil drums, their thunderous echoes creating confusion about his location. Keats fired wildly, his shots ricocheting off stone. "Face me like a man," Keats demanded, climbing higher on the unstable ledges. "Like you faced that Cub?" Caleb called back, his voice bouncing off multiple surfaces. "Buried alive because it wasn't perfect enough for your rich clients." Keats reached the precarious rope bridge. "You're nothing," he shouted. "A nobody who should have stayed in his place." "Maybe," Caleb answered, suddenly visible on the opposite ledge. "But this nobody knows something you don't." He grabbed the sledgehammer he'd positioned earlier and struck the bridge's anchor point. The ropes snapped with a sharp crack. Keats lunged for solid ground, but the ledge beneath him, weakened by Caleb's earlier work with the diverted stream, crumbled away. His scream echoed through the quarry as he plummeted into the deep water below. Within minutes, police sirens wailed in the distance. Lena had timed the release of their evidence perfectly, sending state authorities and federal agents converging on Keats' empire. They found him struggling in the quarry pool, his power and arrogance washed away. Marissa ran to embrace her brother, tears streaming down her face. "I knew you'd come," she whispered. Caleb held her tight, watching as Keats was led away in handcuffs. Lena appeared beside them, her hand finding his. "The Cub's safe," she said softly. "And so are countless others, thanks to you." In that moment, Caleb felt the weight of his old life, the quiet ranch hand everyone overlooked, fall away like the crumbling rocks of the quarry. He had become someone new, someone who had faced impossible odds and won. Not with brute force or money, but with patience, intelligence, and unwavering principle. If this story warmed you tonight, subscribe and leave a single line that stayed with you. Your words shape tomorrow's story.